Shruti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha. Friends, in the last class we had completed the 6th shloka of Siddhantabindu, and now we are in the 7th shloka, and very interesting point is being discussed in this particular context. Now the question that Madhusudana Saraswati poses here, Nanu kasya brahma bhavaha upadishyate. This is a very important question in the sense that, you see, this is Advaita, and when there is only one Brahman, and when Tat Tvam Asi is being stated there, and Chandogya Upanishad is reiterating on the identity of the Supreme Self and the individual self, naturally there arises a question. Kasya Brahma Bhavaha. If there is only one Brahman, then who is teaching whom? For whom this particular teaching is meant? So this is a very important question. So he asks here, Nanu Kasya Brahma Bhavaha Upadishyate. Brahma Bhavaha, which means Abhedaha. And this Abheda or non-difference is being stated by the sentence Tat Tvam Asi. We should remember here that the entire Advaita discussion relies on this Tat Tvam Asi. So actually lifelong we will be searching for something, longing for something, and trying to seek something outside, and Chandogya Upanishad says very explicitly that that reality which you have been longing for several births is no other than yourself. You are that. That is actually in a way, that art thou. This is the non-difference. That means it is actually no other thing. It is the individual self. Now Madhusudana Saraswati poses a question here. He says, Kasya Brahma Bhavaha Upadishyate. If there are two persons, if there are two realities, then one supreme reality can teach that to the inferior reality. That means there should be two, the suprasentient and infrasentient realities. But here, when there is one reality, so then this kind of instruction should be waste. So that is the question. Now there are two options. Brahmanaha abrahmanova. Now you tell me, Tat Tvam Asi, this particular instruction is meant for whom? Meant for the Brahman or the non-Brahman? It's a very interesting debate, and it's very, very pertinent here, because there is one Brahman, then the instruction should be meant for Brahman. There is no other reality at all. And if you say that particular instruction is meant for other than Brahman, then you should inevitably accept the reality, the second reality. Then that will be Dvaita, which you have been discarding all throughout. So therefore, we must be very careful here. Madhusudana Saraswati presents the option here for whom the instruction in the form of Tat Tvam Asi meant. For the Brahman or the non-Brahman. For the Brahman, who is of the form of Sakshi. Non-Brahman is totally inert, insentient, and that cannot take the instruction. So this should be taken here that the instruction is meant for Brahman only. But if it is already Brahman, then why are you giving this instruction? Then in that case also the instruction will be utterly useless. So this way he poses one question and the option, and says Na Antyaha. Now he examines the possibility of the options there. Now coming to the second option, Na Antyaha. Passing an instruction or imparting knowledge to the insentient, inert or lifeless object is not possible at all. Because Tasya Jadatvat. Because other than Brahman is considered as Jada, insentient, lifeless. Then once it is understood as lifeless or insentient, Asatvacha, it is actually in Advaita, it is lifeless and it is Mithya. That means it is not at all real. Then why to pass this instruction to a lifeless thing to become identical with the Brahman? So instruction becomes useless. Okay, let us consider the first option of imparting knowledge or instruction to the Brahman, na prathamaha. Madhusudana Saraswati explains that even the first option is baseless because upadesha anarthakyat. Upadesha anarthakyat. If it is already Brahman, then why to say that you are Brahman? Because it is already Brahman and it knows that. So instruction is generally given to such a person who is under the influence of ignorance and who does not realize. But if it is already Brahman, so there is no need to pass the instruction. So thus upadesha, that instruction, anarthakyam, will be useless. Brahma bhavasya swataha eva siddhatvat. Because Brahma bhavaha, that means identity with the Brahman, swata eva siddhatvat, it is verily the Brahman. So that is self-evident, self-established. It need not be corroborated. It need not be substantiated by any other thing. Therefore, you need not pass any instruction. If we consider this, then automatically the entire instruction of Chandogya Upanishad will become purposeless. That is the problem. Jivasya swataha brahma bhavepi. So, okay, in that case we can consider another option, that jiva, that means the individual soul, or we can say the conditioned soul. Conditioned by what? The conditions are time, space, ignorance. These are the conditions, and because of these conditions the energy is limiting itself in the body and just knowing itself being enveloped by the body. So that is the problem here, and Taittiriya Upanishad has been trying to elaborate this particular concept, that the entire life awareness in the form of the Chaitanya, that is being enveloped at various levels in the sense, sometimes we find ourselves being enveloped the physical needs, that is food, water and other things. So that is the Annamaya Kosha. And sometimes we find ourselves being wrapped in the second, that is Manomaya Kosha. That means we will be emotional, we will be under the effect of feelings, all that. That is the Manomaya Kosha. And we find ourselves being wrapped and tied by the Pranamaya Kosha also. That means the vital breath that is passing through the body, that is actually pulling us inside, and that is also like a sheath, like a cover of the soul. And beyond that also there is one Vijnanamaya Kosha, and sometimes we find some satisfaction, some bliss, beatitude, even in knowledge, realizing something. But that also is like a cover, and above that there is Anandamaya Kosha. We really experience ourselves, because Ananda is the very form of the soul, but that experience of Ananda becomes only an envelope, and becoming one with the Ananda is only the true form of Atma. That's what the Taittiriya Upanishad also says. And now coming here, if Jiva is the energy or consciousness enveloped in the body, being conditioned by time, space, ignorance, then Jivasya swataha brahma bhavepi. So this is very clear here, that when we see our reflection in the mirror, and if there are some dots on the mirror, and if we attribute that to ourselves and say that there is something on my face, I should remove that, etc. So making all efforts to remove the dots from our face will be useless, because the dots are on the mirror and the mirror only reflects that, and the dots, the impurities, they pertain to the mirror, not to the face. Similarly here, the consciousness is the same, but the Annamaya, Manomaya, Pranamaya, Vijnanamaya, so all these wrappers, all these envelopes, they actually limit the self. And Swataha Brahma Bhavepi, though there is pure consciousness, absolute consciousness here, Avidya Vyavadhanam Jnanena Nivartyate. Avidya Vyavadhanam. There is, of course, there is a curtain, there is a veil of ignorance. Avidya Vyavadhanam. Vyavadhana is actually the curtain between the two. That is Brahma and Jiva. So Avidya is the curtain between these two, and because of that curtain only, that consciousness is thinking itself to be only Jiva, the limited self. And now all the Upanishads, and through them Shankaracharya also tries to say that the avidya, the veil of ignorance, should be removed, so that there will be oneness with the reality. And if it is argued by the opponent that realization that removes the wheel of ignorance, and so that there will be utter identity of the self. Iti chet na. Madhusudana Saraswati presents the opponent's view and outright he refutes the view, saying, Avidya nivrittehe atmarupatve dvaitapattehe brahmanaha asiddhi prasangat. He says, now removal of ignorance. Now logically, yes, when I know something, my ignorance of that particular subject, of that particular object will be removed. Because not knowing that it is a snake, it is a rope, I think there is some snake and I get all feelings. Then when I realize that it is only a rope, then because of the knowledge that it is a rope, my wrong comprehension, wrong knowledge in the form of snake is removed. So this way it appears to be very apt to say that knowledge removes ignorance. But Madhusudana Saraswati points at the logical fallacy there. He says, Avidya nivrittehe atmarupatve. That means removal of ignorance. If you consider that as the very form of Atma, the problem is you will have to consider two things. One is the self, other is removal of ignorance. And if there are two realities, then that will unnecessarily land us in Dvaita. That means it will naturally lead us to the duality only, not absolute monism. That is the problem. That means if we accept other than self, it will be Dvaita. And Advaita is pure stress on the self. And the self is Brahman only. So, Brahmanaha asiddhi prasangat. And if that is the very nature of self, then Brahma will become unfounded. That is the problem. And Madhusudana Saraswati quotes from Sureshwaracharya Vartika also, where it is said, Avyavruttau ananugatam vastu brahmeti bhanyate brahmartho durlabhotra syad dvitiya sati vastuni. Now two things are there. If we think that avyavruttau ananugatam vastu brahmeti bhanyate, that means when you remove all the things, that whatever is not negated, everything other than that is negated, and that particular reality is continuing. Let us take the episode from Panchadashi also. In the Tattva Viveka Prakarana, Vidyaranya Swami very aptly raises this and points to that in wakeful state we know the world through our senses, and there is one knowledge and all the other thing changes. Okay, this is wakeful state. So thus red color, blue color, white color, etc. Similarly, good bad taste, good bad smell. So all these things, they vary in the wakeful state. And I, the perceiver, am alone, the same. Okay, after this, when I get into sleep, when I get dreams, in that dreamful state, I get several experiences, but that I is the same. And in deep sleep state also, when everything is at rest, I am there and everything disappears. So in all these three states, we find one thing continuing, and it is the pure consciousness, and that energy, that consciousness is the very self. So this way, Vidyaranya Swami also explained, and the same thing is reiterated. Now, Sureshwaracharya says in the shloka, that is shloka, the Vartika, saying that avyavruttau, so actually everything is negated, everything is discarded, but in all these things something is continuing. When everything is taken away, something is continuing, and that reality brahmeti bhanyate, it alone is called the Brahman. That means if you just simply rip off the various conditions like time, space, name, form, all the characteristics, all the material qualities of that, if you rip off all these, then finally you will come to that particular reality called Brahman. And Upanishads are trying to take our attention to that That is the reality. It is pure consciousness. Brahmartho durlabhotra syad dvitiye sati vastuni. Dvitiye vastuni sati brahmarthaha atra durlabha syat. Sureshwaracharya says that if there is any second thing, then the very meaning of the word Brahma will not be possible at all. Because Brahman, Brahma, this comes from the Sanskrit root Brahma, which means all pervading, expanded, limitless. When that is the sense of the word, and you say there is something which is all pervading, and you say there is another thing also, how can it be possible? So therefore, that Brahmartho durlabhotra syat dvitiye sati vastuni. That's why there is no possibility of any other thing. Brahman alone is the reality. Iti. Abhinnatvecha, if the individual self is identical or one with the Brahman, then upadesha anarthakyamiti uktam. You said that if it is the Brahman, so why to give any instruction for that? Why to teach the identity? Now regarding this we will say, atra kim paramarthataha phalabhavam abhipreshi kim va pratititopi. Now there will not be any use, means paramarthataha, that means in the absolute sense will there not be any use at all, or pratititopi, just empirical level. That means you are negating the fruit, there will not be any result, there will not, it's actually the instruction itself is not required, you say, but is it in absolute sense or empirical sense? Tatra adyam ishtapatya pariharati. Now in the 7th shloka, Shankaracharya explains that actually there is no teacher, no taught, no disciple, no preceptor, no science, nothing. That is actually the absolute state of Advaita. Madhusudana Saraswati tries to understand the heart of Shankaracharya, and through the connecting sentences, he tries to say that Shankaracharya must have this particular idea in his mind, and therefore Adyam Ishtapatya Pariharati. That means if you say that there is no use of any instruction, spiritual instruction at the absolute level, in absolute sense, that is desirable. We will also accept it, that in the absolute sense there is no instruction at all. Now Shankaracharya shloka is this: Na shasta na shastram na shishyo na shiksha na chatvam na chaham na chayam prapanchah swarupa vabodho vikalpa sahishnu tadeko vasishtah shivah kevaloham. Na shasta na shastram na shishyo na shiksha na chatvam na chaham na chayam prapanchah swarupa vabodho vikalpa sahishnus tadeko vasishtah shivah kevaloham. Shankaracharya desires to say, na shasta, shasta means teacher, upadeshta, instructor. Na shasta is actually, there is nothing which teaches, which gives you knowledge. Na shastram, there is no science at all which can be taught. Na shishyaha, there is no other person to be taught, because when there is only one consciousness as Brahman, how can there be any difference at all? Na shishyaha, na shiksha, there is no process of teaching also. The method of teaching is also not there. Na chatvam, in absolute sense, there is no individual soul as that can be pointed out as you. There is no such thing. Because whatever is pointed out, whatever is referred to by the word you is only drishya, that means part of mithya. It is only inert. That which is seen is mithya. That which sees is real. So this is the Advaita essence. The secret of Advaita is only this. What you see is only mithya, is illusion or appearance. And the one seeing, the one knowing, the one comprehending That is actually the reality. And Advaita tries to turn our attention to that. Na chatvam. So there is no second person outside. Na chaham. But at the same time, trying to envelop yourself in these things and saying that I am only Jiva, it is only ignorance. Na chatvam. And therefore, here Shankaracharya says that there is no person outside, and the person as perceived by people inside is also not there. Because the limited self is a wrong notion. In all the bodies, some energy is flowing, and that energy is Brahman. Na chayam prapanchaha. Okay, after negating these two things also, he comes to this. He says prapancha. Prapancha. Prapancha means actually expansion. The expansion in the form of the entire world around is also not there. So here we find in this shloka, he is negating everything. And that negation is very pinpointed, that this is not there, this is not there. It is very easy to say that Jagan Mithya, everything is negated, but in what sense it is negated and how everything of the universe is negated. So he has given a very big list of these things, and in the 7th shloka he has come to the way of instruction also. He says, actually in the absolute state of Brahman, the consciousness, you cannot say there is some instructor, somebody instructed, the passing of instruction. So such distinctions are not there at all. And in that particular absolute state of Brahma, there is only one Brahman, there is no second person, there are no limitations, and that absolute state, Shivah Kevaloham, Shankaracharya says, that auspicious state, I am verily that. So here, Nachayam Prapanchaha, before that particular consciousness, even the entire expansion of the world is not there. How? Because everything, if you minutely observe, is only an appearance. That which you point out and try to name, that disappears. It is in this way that you take air in your hand and you want to show somebody, but nothing is there. Similarly, the entire world outside is made up of atoms, and when you look at an object outside and you say that it is blue, black, red, white, etc., it is only the reflection, and there is no such color, there is no such object, and everything is only a game of atoms. And in this thing also, when you get deep into the very center of the object's material world, center of the atom, you find there only energy, and that energy is playing the entire game. Lokavattu Leela Kaivalyam, says the Brahma Sutra. And when that particular energy is playing in the form of atoms, otherwise there is no point why the electron proton should whirl around the nucleus, and why there should be some electromagnetic force, etc. All these are only the various facets of the same reality, the single energy. And therefore the entire world is only like some bubble on the surface of the water. It may appear for some time, it may show its color, but the next moment it may merge into the same water, it is no more. And that's why na pretya samjna asti. So afterwards it doesn't have any appellation at all, it doesn't have any identity at all, no name at all, and such is the reality. And therefore all these appearances are deceptive, they should be removed, negated, and when these are all ripped off, there is only one thing, that is the Brahman. And he says here, Nachayam prapanchaha swarupa vabodho. There is only one thing, realization of my own form, that is consciousness. And for this experience one should sit in deep meditation, and then only this can be realized. And when that particular experience takes place, one will long for that. One cannot enjoy the things outside, because once he is addicted to the experience of this in meditation, then he cannot go after the material things. And as it gets concrete, as it gets solid, then slowly he gets detached, and there will be absolute establishment in his own form. Vikalpa sahishnuhu. And in that particular state, vikalpa asahishnuhu, there cannot be any possibility of any option, any second nothing, no distinction at all. And that absolute state is the Brahman. And therefore, in the absolute sense of Advaita, there cannot be any teaching. That's what Shankaracharya says in his introductory commentary on the Brahma Sutra Bhashya. He says there that actually all this Pramana Prameya Vyavahara, Shastradi Vyavahara, Vaidika Laukikascha, Avidyakaha. So he says the entire scheme of Veda, Vedanga, Shastra, imparting that knowledge, getting that knowledge, all this is within the periphery of Avidya, that is ignorance. That means the person who is trying to get knowledge is under the influence of ignorance, and the person who sees somebody outside and tries to teach something is also under the influence of Advaita. And thus, when it is pure state of Advaita, there cannot be any difference at all. Only coming out of that, only in the Dvaita, one can think of some teaching, getting some teaching, etc. So he says that, that's why Tadeko Vasishtaha Shivah Kevaloham, and I remain as that pure consciousness. I am auspicious and I am single. There is no other reality, there is no other world, nothing around. So that is the idea in the 7th shloka. Now the Sanskrit words are explained with other words of same sense. Shasta means teacher, Upadeshakarta, Guruhu. Shastram means Upadeshaha. Shishyaha, Upadesha Karma. Shiksha, Upadesha Kriya. Tvam, Shrota. Aham, Vakta. Ayam, Sarva Pramana Sannidhapitaha Prapanchaha. That means the entire world means what? The world which is a matter of our knowledge, which we perceive, which is a matter of all our valid means of knowledge. So this world is also not there. Dehendriyadihi arthaha paramarthato nasti ityarthaha. Now we have to understand the emphasis on the word paramarthataha. Now he doesn't use the word nasti simply. He doesn't say that world is not there, the body, senses are not there. He doesn't say that, because everybody has the experience of this. How can one negate? Even hundreds of Shastra also cannot say the real thing as unreal. Shastra Shetenapi Marichudakam Satyamiti na Pratipadyate. Shankaracharya says in his Bhagavad Gita Bhashya that hundreds of Vedic texts also cannot say that mirage, that means water in the desert, is real. They cannot say that, because it is unreal, unreal. Real is real. That's why you cannot say something which is unreal as real. So here also he says this entire world in the form of bodies, in the form of all the things, so this is not totally unreal. Paramarthataha nasti. That means only in the absolute state, absolute sense, it is unreal. Now what about our day-to-day activities? What about our empirical experiences? Advaita also doesn't say anything about that, because Shankaracharya knew that, and he said therefore the reality we perceive at different levels. We live in the day-to-day life, and here whatever we see, whatever we experience, whatever we interact, all this is only vyavaharika, empirical. So this is not real, because this cannot be real. Because a particular time is given to this machine, this you can say some toy. So some particular time is given. From this moment to this moment, this toy has to move, and you enjoy, experience, know, and interact, divide, share, everything. Whatever you have to do that between these 2 points. And afterwards, your body is consigned to flames. Your body is reduced to ashes. So that is the reality. Nobody can deny the fact there. Therefore, the body is real as long as there is life inside, as long as it continues working. But afterwards it is not there. Therefore, whatever exists in a particular period of time, not in 3 periods, it is only mithya. That means not much importance should be given to that. Paramarthataha nasti. And second reality Pratibhasika. Sometimes we mistake something for other thing, and that mistaking something, miscomprehension, is known as Pratibhasika Satta. That means when I see snake in the place of a rope, snake is there, but where? Not outside, only in my brain. And I see snake outside also, though it is not there outside. And such existence is known as Pratibhasika. That means temporary, cancelable reality. That which is cancelled later on. That which is only miscomprehension. But beyond these two, there is one reality, that is Paramarthika Satta. That is the absolute reality, and one energy consciousness is permeating through the universe, and all the changes are taking place in that, but that energy does not change. All the changes pertain to the matter. Therefore, everything else is only energy. That consciousness called Brahman is absolutely real. Therefore, he says the body, etc., is there only at empirical level, not at the absolute level. Dvitiyam nirakaroti. He says there cannot be any second thing. Swarupa vabodho vikalpa sahishnuhu. There is only its true form. There is no other option. Ayamarthaha. Now Madhusudana Saraswati explains this in his own words. Yadyapi avidyanivrittihi atma anatma va ityadi vikalpane किमपि फलं निरूपयितुं न शक्यते तथापि स्वरूपावबोधः विज्ञान फलं अनुभूयते. He says, if you really place two options and say whether avidya nivritti, that means the removal of ignorance, is it the very form of self or not? If you make the option, actually it cannot be answered, he says. There any separate fruit result of that cannot be shown, but still he says swarupa avabodha vijnana phalam anubhuyate. That means when I realize at that particular moment that ignorance is removed, then swarupa avabodha, that means realizing my true form itself is the result there. So though it is very difficult to propound any separate result there, I feel that it is the experience of the very nature of the self is the result. Nachaitat kathamiti vikalpaniyam. But again you should not make options saying how is it possible? Again options, no, because sarvadvaita upamardena vikalpa asahishnutvat. Vikalpa asahishnuhu. There cannot be any options, distinctions, differences in that particular state of Brahman. Because once a person reaches there, all the divisions are lost. Therefore, you cannot make any option there. Nahi drushte anupapannam nama tadhacha shrutihi. When one experiences that, there is no other attestation for that. Your experience is your pramana. So therefore he says, drushte anupapannam nama katham. That means when one experiences that particular state, how can you once again give options and try to refute that? That's why Madhusudana Saraswati here quotes a shloka very aptly from the Mandukya Karika, Gaudapada Karika. Na nirodho na chotpattihi na buddho na cha sadhakaha na mumukshur na vaimuktaha ityesha paramarthata. He says, really, if you are you are getting the experience of Brahman, then you realize na nirodhaha. Actually, in that sense, there is no control of mind or there is no bandha. Nachotpattihi, there is no creation at all. Na buddhaha, there is no individual self who is in the bondage. Na sadhakaha, there is not even a person who is trying to get rid of all this bondage. Na mumukshuhu, there cannot be any person who desires for moksha, because everybody is only the Brahman. Therefore, there is no distinction at all. Navai muktaha, or in the absolute sense, we can even say that there is no even liberated soul, because soul is always liberated. So how can you say that the soul is liberated? That's why liberated soul, wrong usage. Person trying for liberation, wrong usage. person desiring, aspiring for liberation, wrong usage. Creation, wrong. Dissolution, wrong. So all these are only words. These are verbal, and words are deceptive. Therefore, here the Shruti warns us that I am part of the universe. Slowly, I am part, etc. All these disappear, and there will be only one thing, that is only the energy. And at that particular moment, all the senses stop functioning. And that is actually the true state, and therefore everything else is only man-made, society-made, and it is only conventional. That's what the Shruti says here. And very interestingly, the Advaita system, Sankhya and Yoga also reiterate this. There also it is said that na badhyate, na muchyate, badhyate, muchyate cha nanashreya prakritihi. The Sankhya Karika towards the end of the text says, nobody is in bondage, nobody is liberated, and whatever is in bondage and whatever is liberated, only the matter, the prakriti, not the soul. Soul is always liberated. Therefore, the usage that it has come into the bondage and it has got rid of the bondage, etc., is only verbal, and one should not give importance to such instructions. Brahmava idamagra asit tat atmanam aved aham brahmasmiti tasmat tat sarvam abhavat ityadyaha. Not only this statement, there are several more, like Brahma, the cosmic reality alone was in the beginning, then it realized itself, then it became aham brahmasmi. It realized that aham brahmasmi, I am verily the Brahman, and then it became the entire universe. So all these scriptural sentences corroborate that it is the reality. Purvamapi Brahma Swarupaseva Sataha Jivasya Jnanat Brahma Bhavam Darshayati. That means the individual self who understands himself to be individual, actually he is Brahma Bhava, that means he is the verily Brahman. Jnanat Brahma Bhavam Darshayati. And the previous scriptural statement also says very clearly that the Brahman Avet Aham Brahmasmiti, realizes that he is Brahman, and then he becomes everything. There is no limitation at all. Similarly here, the individual soul also, when realizes that it is the Brahman, then all the limitations and conditions are gone, then it is the Brahman. Sarvam cha dvaitam varayati. And thus the previous scriptural statement also tries to discard all dual reality. There is no second reality at all. Nanu atmanaha swaprakasha chaitanya rupatve sarvada bhasamanattvena jagrat swapna sushuptyadi vyavastha katham nacha bhrantyeva vyavastha iti vachyam tadha sati sarvasyaiva swapnatvapatiriti chet na. Now another question is, okay, if everything, that the entire world is only Brahman and the self is Brahman, which is self-evident, self-referent, then it should be illuminative every time. Sarvada bhasamanatvena. Then Jagrat Swapna Sushuptyadi Vyavastha Katham. Then how can you justify the three states called wakeful state, dream state and deep sleep state? Now we find wakeful state, the energy is fully flowing, there is contact with the universe through the senses. In the Swapna, the senses have created through the mind their own world, and in the deep sleep state, all this functioning is stopped. Now this variation is there. If you say that there is only one self which is self-illuminative, all that, then it is there in all the three states. Then in all the three states there should be same knowledge, but such cognition is not there. So how do you justify this particular system? Nacha bhrantyeva vyavastha iti vachyam. You cannot say that it is only out of illusion that such kind of distinction is made. Tadha sati sarvasyaiva swapnatvapatiriti chet. Because if you say that it is only illusion, then swapna being illusion, wakeful state and deep sleep state should also be illusion. Because in Advaita, the dream state is considered as illusion. So if you say that the entire system is illusion, then that will apply to all the three states. Then all the three states will become dream state. Iti chet na. Madhusudana Saraswati gives the answer. Lakshanatah Trayanamapi Swapnatvepi. So actually he says, truly speaking, all the three states are like Swapna only. That means this dream state, this wakeful state in which we experience the universe through our senses is also like dream. That's what Advaita says. Dream state is of course dream, and even deep sleep state, because before that particular reality it is also like dream, because all the three states are cancelled. That's what Mandukya Upanishad says. That's actually Chaturtham Advaitam Manyante. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, beyond that there is the reality. And when that is the reality, so naturally all the other three will be cancelled. And whatever is cancelled is illusion, like Swapna, like dream. And therefore, true sense, all the three are dreams. But still, Pratibhasataha Avidyakrita Vishesha Sambhavat. But it is only out of ignorance that we make the distinction. It is out of ignorance that something is stated as Jagrat, something is stated as dream. Sadasad Vilakshanatvenacha, and that particular avidya or ignorance is known as inexplicable. That means which cannot be described as real or unreal. It is neither real nor unreal. It is anirvachaniya, beyond words. Savisheshatvad vyavastha upapattehe, and because of that particular ignorance only, all that distinct experience is there. Paramarthatastu nakapi vyavastha, but in the absolute sense of Advaita, there is no such distinction, no Jagrat, no Swapna, no Sushupti. Who said so? Now Madhusudana Saraswati connects the next shloka saying, Na Jagran na me swapnako va sushuptihi, na vishvo na va taijasaf prajnako va avidyatmakatva trayanam turiya tadeko vasishta shivah kevaloham. He says, Na Jagran na me swapnako va sushuptihi. The pure self, I, do not have any wakeful state, dream state and deep sleep state. All the three states are not to me. Na Vishvo, and nor even the entire Ishvara, it's not there. Nava Taijasaha Prajnakaha. These three are the technical terms given to the presiding consciousness of that particular state. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. These are the three states. And the consciousness related to that particular state is given a name. So Vishwa is the consciousness in the Jagrada Avastha. Taijasaha is in the Swapna Avastha, and Prajna is in the deep sleep state. Now we should understand that particular scientific fact here, that when in the dream state, when Advaita says that that particular consciousness is only Taijasa, we should understand that physiologically also the neurons, they connect to the brain, and neurons will be passing this information very fast, rapidly to the other one, and all this is electric, and there are mild electric charges also, and that particular electric charge is known as Tejaha. And that's why Advaita says, referring to that particular state, dream is nothing but the movement of the neurons there. And when it is abruptly moving here and there is mixing of file also. So some ununderstandable, unintelligible, or rather we can say unjustifiable experience is obtained there, and because of the movement of the neurons there in the brain, and that is because of the electric charge. Therefore, in the dream state it is only Taijasa. In the wakeful state, it is Vishwa, because through my eyes, I look around and see the world around. It is the Vishwa. And therefore, I have an identity with the world outside. So, my name is Vishwa in the Jagrat state. And in the Swapna state, I, in the form of the neurons or the energy, electric charge inside, I become Taijasa. And in the deep sleep state, okay, there will not be any external cognition, recording, etc., mental function, etc., but still I am there. Otherwise, after deep sleep state, I cannot come out, I should not come out, but I come out. I reconnect myself with the universe. with the other things outside. So I should understand that in the deep sleep state also, though there are no cognitions, there is the reality. It is prajna. Prakarshena ajna. That means at that particular moment, it doesn't know anything at all. That's why nothing is recorded. That's why a person when he comes out of the state of deep sleep, what does he say? He says, Nakinchid avedisham gadham gudham aham aswapsam. So he says, I had a very deep sound sleep. I didn't know anything at all. But not knowing that is also recorded. That means he is there as energy. So these three are given to the presiding consciousness of that particular state. Avidyatmakatvat trayanam turiyaha. Because these three states are the products of avidya, I am not that. I am beyond that. Turiyaha, the fourth. The fourth is Chaturdha, Advaita, that is the pure self. Tadeko vasishtaha shivah kevaloham. And I am verily that energy, and that is auspicious. Atra layakramena paurvaparya vyapadeshaha. Now, Advaita system, padartho dvividhaha. There are only two categories. The entire world can be classified into two categories. One is drik, second is drushyam. Of course, Shankaracharya also has written a small treatise on this. Drushya drushya viveka, he said. Now here we have to understand that the entire universe is consisting of two things. One is drik, another is drushya. That means the seen and the seer, the perceived and the perceiver. Perceiver is the consciousness, perceived is the matter. So outside matter, inside the perceiver, the energy, only two things are there. Anyesham vadi parikalpitanam padarthanam atraiva antarbhavat. Of course, there are other thinkers also, and they have postulated some other categories, like in Nyaya Shastra there are 16 categories. In the Vaiseshika Shastra there are 7 categories. In the Sankhya Darshana there are 25 categories. In the Yoga Darshana, adding Ishvara, there are 26 categories. In the Shaiva Darshana there are 36 categories. This way the number of categories increases. That number varies from one system to the other system. But all these can be verily and perfectly accommodated in these two. That means whatever you explain, all this apart from Atma, apart from the self, comes under Drushya. That means whatever we say, whatever we perceive as two, it is the final number, because one is the seer, the perceiver, and other is the perceived. And the perceiver is no other than the Brahma, and the perceived Drushyatvat Mithya. Because it is seen, it is only an appearance. It is apparently real, not absolutely. So this way we discard that. Tatra Drik Sakshi. That consciousness called Atma, it appears to be three. One, Ishvaraha, the Lord, God. Jivaha, the soul, self-individual. Sakshi, the observing consciousness. So this way, the difference is only we place some colored flower near a crystal. Temporarily, the crystal appears to be of that color. But we observe, we understand that actually it has not got the color. The moment you remove the flower, the crystal will be in its true form, pristine form. Similarly here also, because of various adjuncts, the same consciousness sometimes appears as Jiva, sometimes as Sakshi, but when the adjunct is removed, like the colored flower from the Spatika, that is the crystal, simply the crystal remains in its true form. Here also the consciousness will remain in its true form, and removing all the adjuncts and conditions is actually the Brahma. So he says here, Tatra, who is Ishvara? Karani Bhuta Ajnana Upadhihi Ishvaraha is a name given to the consciousness when that particular consciousness is in contact with the Ajnana, Karana, that is the Karana Sharira, Ajnana Upahita. So it is actually is with the matter, with the Ajnana, It is not influenced by that. Both are separate. That's what Advaita system says. So that is Ishvara. Antahkarana tat samskara avachinna ajnana upahitah jivaha. And jiva is that particular condition of consciousness which is limited by ignorance, which has the mind, the various impressions of that. So all these are within the or are attached with the consciousness, and in that particular state we give a name to that consciousness as jiva. Jiva means that consciousness with a mind to think, to feel, to experience and share. So that condition is jiva condition. Third, prapanchitancha etat adhastat. So he says, we had already explained all this. Avidya pratibimba ishvara pakshe bimba chaitanyam sakshi bimbeshvara pakshe tu bimba pratibimba mukhanugata mukha swarupavat jiveshwaranugata sarvanusandhatru chaitanyam sakshi ityuchyate. Now coming to the third, that is sakshi. Who is that observer? Who is that sakshi? Now Madhusudana Saraswati presents here the various views regarding the nature of sakshi. He says it depends. Avidya pratibimba ishvara. If you accept that ishvara is the reflection of consciousness in avidya, then bimba chaitanyam sakshi. That means the image will be sakshi. So here we have to understand two things, that in Advaita, verily within the Advaita there are several views regarding the Ishvara, Jiva, all that. So some people say Jiva and Ishvara both are only reflections and the image is pure absolute consciousness, Brahma. Some others say if you say both Jiva and Ishvara as reflection, then because of similarity, like Jiva, Ishvara should also be ignorant, Ishvara should also be limited, because the impurities of Jiva will also come on to the Ishvara. So that's why Ishvara should not be said like Jiva. So Ishvara should be held high with the Brahma. So then where will be Brahman? That is the problem there. So some people say Ishvara is the Bimba, Jiva is the Pratibimba. Some people say Brahma is the Bimba, both Jiva and Ishvara are the Pratibimba. Now Madhusudana Saraswati refers to that saying Avidya Pratibimba Ishvara Paksha. And now we have to remember another thing here, that Vidyaranya Swami in his Panchadashi very clearly says that actually Ishvara is that consciousness reflected in Maya, not Avidya. But Madhusudana Saraswati is saying that some people are there who consider the Ishvara as the consciousness reflected in Avidya, not Maya. But Vidyaranya Swami says Prakriti is of two types, Maya and Avidya. It depends on that particular Sattva. When Sattva is predominant and purity is more, that Prakriti is known as Maya. When Tamoguna is predominant and other things are dominated, and when it is impure, and that particular impure state of Prakriti is known as Avidya. Now we understand purity of Prakriti is Maya, impurity of Prakriti is Avidya, and the consciousness reflected in Maya is Ishvara, the consciousness reflected in Avidya is Jiva. So this is the distinction made by Vidyaranya in Panchadashi. But here Avidya Pratibimba Ishvara Pakshe, if Ishvara is considered as reflection in Avidya, then Bimba Chaitanya will be Sakshi. So you can say that the image, that consciousness is the Sakshi. Bimba Ishvara Pakshe, Bimba Pratibimba Mukhanugata Mukha Swarupa Vat Jiveshwaranugata Sarvanusandhatru Chaitanyam Sakshi Tyuchyate. If you say simply Ishvara is not Pratibimba, Ishvara is Bimba, image, in that case then Bimba Pratibimba Mukhanugata Mukha Swarupavat. But face is here and in the reflection also. It is continuing in both. Similarly, here Jiva Ishvara Anugata Swarupanusandhatru Chaitanyam. So that consciousness which is reflected in both Ishvara and Jiva, that is called Sakshi. Sakshi can be understood at various levels. Vartikakara matetu Ishvara eva Sakshi. Now Madhusudana Saraswati supports or accepts the view of Vartikara Sureshwaracharya and says Ishvara eva Sakshi. Very interestingly he says that whatever may be the condition of that Ishvara, but Ishvara verily is the Sakshi, the witness. Iti Ishvara and Sakshi, but we understand that Sakshi is verily the Ishvara. So why to say three? It is only two. One is Jiva, other is Ishvara. So Jiveshwara Bhedena Drushaha Tatra Ishwaropi Trividhaha. Now, very interestingly, Ishvara is also understood as of three types. How can be that? Depending on his function. A person sitting here can be father, husband, son, student, teacher. So everything is to the same person. Similarly, same Ishvara can be understood as having three forms. What are they? Brahma Vishnu Rudra Bhedat. Only one energy called Ishvara is known as Brahma sometimes, as Vishnu sometimes, as Rudra sometimes. How? Depending on Swa Upadhibhuta Avidya Gunatraya Bhedena. We have to understand that in all these states that Ishvara is associated with Avidya, and Avidya is nothing but Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. So because of these three forces, the consciousness called Ishvara being connected with what force? If Sattva force is dominant, he is Vishnu. If Rajoguna is dominant, he is Brahma to create. If Tamoguna is dominant, he is Rudra, withdrawing all these things within himself. Thus, Ishvara, that energy, that consciousness is known by three names: Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. And the very beginning, the Prathamaskanda of Bhagavata also substantiates its saying that there is only one energy, Ekaiva Shaktihi Vividhacha Shruyate, and that is Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. So we have to understand that this Ishvara is one, but known as having three forms because of his function. Karanibhuta Sattvagunavachinno Vishnu Palayita. If Sattva is dominant, then it is Palayita Vishnu. Karanibhuta Raja Upahito Brahma Srashta. If Rajoguna is dominant, then it is Brahma. He is the creator. Hiranyagarbhastu Mahabhuta Karanatva Bhavat Na Brahma Tadhapi Sthulabhuta Srashtrutvat Kvachit Brahmeti Upacharyate. Actually, there is another category as Hiranyagarbha. In Vedanta Paribhasha, Hiranyagarbha is explained as Prathamo Jivaha, the first self. But here he says he is actually Mahabhuta Karanatva Abhavat. In that particular state, there is no state of producing the Mahabhuta, therefore he is not the creator. Tadhapi, because he creates the gross elements, he is known as Brahma. Iti Upacharyate. This is only a secondary usage, not to be taken very seriously. And now coming to Rudra, Karani Bhuta Tama Upahito Rudraha Samharta. When Tamoguna is dominant, it is Rudra, and that particular state of energy removes everything, withdraws everything. And that energy, when it creates, it is Brahma. When that energy sustains, it is Vishnu. And when that energy withdraws, it is only the Rudra. And Evamcha Ekasyaiva. So there is one reality still. Chaturbhuja, Chaturmukha, Panchamukhadhyaha, Pumakaraha. So all these, that means the same God is described in different texts as possessing, as having 4 heads, 5 heads. Not only that, that energy is given various female forms also, saying Shri, Bharati, Bhavani, Adyascha Striyakaraha. So we humans have given, according to our taste, our preference, we have given various forms and names to the God, energy, saying sometimes it is Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. Sometimes it is Stri, Shri, Bhavani, Saraswati. All these feminine forms are also given. Not only that, we have given 4 heads, 5 heads, 6 heads, everything, and 4 hands. So we have given all these, we have attributed all these to the reality. Anyecha, not only that, we have tried to understand that particular reality even in the form of animals or creatures also, like Matsya, Kurma, Adeha, Ananta Avataraha. Thus we have described, even the Shastra says, like Bhagavata, in the very beginning it says that there are not 10 Dashavatara, but more than 10, 22 avatars are also there, and there are Swarupa Avatara, Avesha Avatara, Vyuha Avatara, Vibhava Avatara. These are all Avatara. And here he says that kind of incarnations are also attributed to that, but still, Leelaya eva avirbhavanti, but those are just because of the grace of the consciousness, that energy, that Shakti, that energy tries to express itself through various forms, and that's why there is no wrong. If it is Matsya Avatara, Kurma Avatara, Varaha Avatara, if it is Devi, if it is Saraswati, Lakshmi, so in all this there is no wrong absolutely, because it is verily the play of the energy. Bhaktanugrahartham ityavadheyam. That's why all this should be understood as for the sake of the devotees. That means for the sake of us who are under the influence of ignorance, who want to get rid of this, who want to get that spiritual satisfaction. For us, various avatars are elaborately described in Purana, Itihasa, all that, and that is not wrong. We should understand them in right perspective. That is the idea here. And here, this way, Madhusudana Saraswati has found a very apt place to explain even the concept of avatara, so that the right students and deserving devotees and the earning people will naturally get a benefit out of that. And this way, here he explains the 7th shloka also, and the discussion will continue further, and we stop here. Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi.